before I finally said, "You idiot. You're creating more metabolic stress than you're benefiting from." And you can see it in your blood work. You can feel it when you
Yeah.
just move or try to sleep. Get a clue.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ta-dum. I am interviewing the most prosecuted man in the keto carnivore community. Hi, Zane. How are you today?
Good. Thank you. I don't know that I qualify for being in the community,
What
but
is happening?
I appreciate the conversation. Believe me, a civil conversation with someone who has come from that community and who has so much understanding of nutrition, so that we can actually speak on equal terms. But yeah, I think this is something. I've been a coach for 28 years. I've been experimenting with diets for over 30, with a desire to avoid metabolic disease. It was like my passion in my 20s because I saw how it was impacting all my relatives. And
Mm,
so I didn't want that for my future. And somehow in my 20s, I got a case of mortality that made me think I gotta avoid, I can't have this. And so I started experimenting with diets in my mid 20s, early mid 20s. Vegan, vegetarian, then low carb, lots of intermittent fasting in there somewhere until I hit a wall and had a lot of negative symptoms. It's like, this shouldn't be happening. And so I dug in, figured it out, made some changes. And over the last few years, experimenting, making changes, digging in deeper, to many people, it probably looks like I've made an about face shift, but it's been 2.5, 3 years in the making
right.
of really making sure that I was seeing what I was seeing and that the fix I was executing was an accurate one, was one that I understood and could explain, not just experience. And so that kind of has basically come out. I kind of have started talking a little bit about it, my stories, and I got a lot of messages and questions from a lot of people from that community, and started answering them politely. And then I made a couple posts, and then I got suddenly people started showing up on the posts who disagreed with me, but they were also name calling, and then they were also, and I had people who had experienced a similar thing that I had, or even worse symptoms than I had, and yet and how they'd been disqualified or discredited or even harassed by people from the community, and that kind of uh, spurred more posts and a little bit of a more confrontational attitude on my part with the people coming into my post,
Yeah.
calling people addicts, calling, saying a variety
I
of
don't think
aggressive
you,
things.
yeah, I think you were just, they're coming after you, right? I don't think you were confrontational on purpose. I think it was
I
just
didn't
a
mention
normal.
anyone's name, but I did, and then eventually I addressed some issues that people had. I was addressing issues like
Yeah. Yep.
health issues
Yep.
strictly. I never mentioned people's names.
Right. So why the people that we're talking about, we're not here in the business of, naming names unless of course they come for us, then it's
Fair game.
let's go. But um why is it that they were name calling you? I don't understand that part.
Well, I think that's just how they do things. I mean, I think that anyone appears, because I've heard this from other people who have said they added carbs back in. And I've seen this in a
Oh,
lot of the threads on social media. When someone says, "Hey, I added carbs back in and alleviated my symptoms of insulin resistance. My blood sugar came back down, or my thyroid went back up. I started losing weight again. I felt better. I had more energy." And you see carb addict, and people attacking them, and you kind of go, "That's they're expressing their experience, and you're invalidating their experience."
yes.
And then the the other approach is, well, you were just doing it wrong. You should have dieted harder, and you probably were letting in, without even asking questions, doing things with your diet, letting things into your diet that was caused you to have these symptoms. It couldn't have been the perfectly executed diet itself causing this problem.
I know what it
There's
is.
no possible way
It's the
that could be
small
happening because this is the perfect human diet. And so you obviously were not executing it perfectly, and that's why you're having the problems. And those are the kind of responses they get.
I've seen
That's
that.
what I was getting in my feed from the other people and who were asking me about my dietary experiences to then invalidate my experience. And so it was a lot of invalidation, eh,
Right.
putting strategy again as more of a priority than health outcome of the person who's actually supposed to be helping.
I wonder why that is. Why is there, I mean, it has become very, very clear now. You and I, we've coached for thousands of clients by now, right? And we just see the comments and I watch a lot of carnivore channels. There's tons
Yeah,
now, right? And just, read the comments. Like there's a
yeah,
very clear,
very
you know,
aggressive.
res yeah, long-term carnivore simply does more harm than good for the vast majority of the population. Some people might have genetic mutations where they, short of gene therapy, they have to do carnivore for now, right? That's different. That's the minority, right? Now,
Yes.
if you want to reverse insulin resistance because your type 2 diabetes is out of control, then that's also different. But again, doing that with understanding why you're doing it, not that it is the optimal human diet, because most certainly it is not.
Well, I don't think well, I mean, we can look back. A lot of people can speculate about what happened 2 million years ago, but I think we look back over the last 10,000 years
Mm-hmm.
and see a variety of indigenous cultures, or back then they were all indigenous, right? Eating in different geographical regions, eating what was available to them in their area, not being super picky because they just wanted to eat.
Yep.
And most of their diets were at least 50, maybe 60 to 85% carbohydrate, unless they lived in the Arctic Circle, right? For those people, they're special. Arctic Circle, they're eating whatever they can find.
Right.
But
But their
most people,
cholesterols are low too, right? As we know now from the carnivore tribes, right? Like I did
that
a
they're what?
their cholesterol is low. So like I did a video on the Maasai tribe and the Inuit that are generally used as proof that,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, they're doing carnivore, but their cholesterol is very, very low. Oxidized cholesterol is low. Small dense LDL is low because there's a lot of physical activity. And so if we want to mimic that type of lifestyle, we should also mimic those types of labs.
Well, yeah, for sure. But I think, Maasai, they're drinking 4 to 6 liters of milk a day.
Yep,
That's 45 grams of carbs in each liter.
true,
They drink more milk than they eat meat. Meat's
true.
not pretty common. They
Yep.
have a few hunting seasons, but they
That
eat tubers and honey, hadza, lots of honey in Tanzania. I mean, 10 months out of the year. But what we saw across the last 10,000 years, we haven't had metabolic disease. And that's where I'm concerned with, is metabolic disease until the 20th century when we started making processed food. But before that, it was an insignificant, tiny, you couldn't find it. And even in indigenous tribes now, you can't find it until they start eating a Western diet, but they could be eating 60 to 85% carb. Okinawa, 10-to-1 ratio of carb to protein from all the sweet potatoes. It's like we have lots of evidence that these high carb diets never caused metabolic disease
yeah,
historically, recorded history, not speculation on history from 2 million years ago, but recorded history of the last 10,000 years. It's been successfully, people eating, just eating and not really trying to worry about manipulating their macros, and they haven't had metabolic disease.
exactly. You know what it is? It's just that they're carb addicts. All those tribes, they just cannot stop eating the sweet potatoes. They're too
Yeah,
delicious.
they're too delicious. Too delicious. I'm definitely qualified as a carb addict at this point. I think my body tells me it wants it a lot. And so,
Okay, here's the thing. The argument is like, oh my gosh, we became shorter. Our skulls shrank in size. Our jaw size shrank after the agricultural revolution. Fine. Yes. This was a very important trade-off that humanity chose to do. Similar to if you look at when we were chimpanzees, all of the religious zealots, sorry, we have to talk science sometimes. All of the chimpanzees don't really have any pain during childbirth because their hip bone is pretty wide. And so they have a pretty wide canal, vaginal canal. No pain, effortless, safe child reproduction. Then came Lucy, and then from there, Homo sapiens. And you can see how hip bones started to shrink. Human beings, the reason our hip bones shrank is because it was far better for locomotion, for bipedalism, so we could walk on two legs. And that was a really important thing for our species. But what happened is, yes, we started walking on two legs, and that was fantastic, but we made a trade-off. We paid a heavy price in that now women have to go through a lot of pain and danger when they're giving birth, similar to the agricultural revolution. Yes, we paid a price, we became shorter, bones more rickety, that's right. Not saying this did not happen, but it was so important for our species to consume the grains and the legumes and the carbs. It was such an important trade-off that we chose to make it anyway.
Hmm. Well, we must have always been eating because if they're hanging from a tree, we're not going to pass up food, right? I mean, no logical hunter-gatherer who just trying to survive and live and eat
Mm-hmm.
is gonna, there's a food hanging on a tree,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to go chase something down and kill it. It seems a lot easier just to pick it off the tree and eat it. And somehow those apples didn't kill them. Those plants that they chose to eat were not trying to kill them. They were just there hanging there waiting for them to eat them. And maybe a banana slipped off and went under someone's foot and they slipped and hit their head. And if you want to call that plants trying to kill them, I don't know. But for the most part, they're just hanging out waiting for us to eat them, and they taste so sweet. It's like, eat some more. And it nourished them. And they felt, because we were scavengers. You can call us apex predator, but we were not, we didn't come to the top of the food chain because we were the biggest or the strongest or the fastest, but we were pretty much the most adaptable species,
That's my favorite
arguably.
quote.
We could adapt to our environment. We could make shelter. We could make clothing. We could make tools, and we could eat the food that runs on the ground and eat the food that grows from the ground. And to get through winters, to get through summers, to get through times when we couldn't find one or the other, we could adapt. But when we had both, we were a lot happier people. And that's really not a shock because we can experience that now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this year, we've talked about this, right? This year has been so transformative for
Mm,
me. My clients are happier. They're getting the results in a much better way, more sustainable way. No rebounds anymore. We're
mhm.
putting on muscle. You know, that's the thing. It's like, how much muscle do you have on your frame? When you look at an influencer and you're trying to take health advice from them and they have zero muscle tone, that is not health.
Right.
Muscle is the organ of longevity. The more muscle you have on your frame, the longer you're going to live, the happier you're going to be, the stronger, more confident your brain is going to fire on all cylinders. You're going to wipe out the competition in a very nice way, right? You're going to
Right.
make more money. You're going to be competitive. You're
Yeah.
going to drive humanity forward.
You're not going to be taken out by age and chronic disease as quickly, right? Or at all. And you're going to be able to perform
Yes.
like a younger person, but you're going to have all that wisdom from the decades of your life
Yeah.
combined with it
Hmm.
because you walk into the room and you've got some age and some gray hair, but you've also you're built for speed.
Yeah.
You're built to take on the stress that life has for us if we want to succeed. And you can avoid the metabolic disease. That was my goal again, to not have metabolic disease in my
Hmm.
50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Hmm.
My most of my family members I saw didn't make it to their 80s, and
And
so
you look healthier, by the way, than all of the carnivores. You're leaner, more shredded, more muscle. I mean, you definitely appear to be far more metabolically healthy. You appear to be more resilient. And that's something that, and you know what? My hubby too, like he does carbs on the weekends. He also is, I mean, the dude is shredded,
no, I've seen pictures of him. The dude's a beast. He's very
right?
lean,
It's
and he's out there
insane.
in Miami. He's super lean and tan. He just looks like basically like a. I mean, he's a little like a surf god, basically. Who's
A German specimen is what I call him. We're going to Germany next week. I'm very excited. So yeah, he doesn't even have to. I mean, I'm the one who pushed him to compete. I'm like, you can win, and it's true. He won so easily. He didn't even practice posing, and he would win the shows because at his age, I mean, he's gonna be 62 in December. Can you believe it?
Hmm.
And he does carbs. He has his pizza. Now, I'm not saying people watching this, I don't do pizzas. Drug foods for me are a no-no, you
No,
know?
I don't feel good when I do that. I don't
Yeah.
feel good. I mean, I eat a lot of fruit, a lot of sweet potato, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
rice, and it
Mm-hmm.
works really well for me. I'll be 55 here in a couple weeks,
Nice.
and it's my blood work looks great. My last labs, my insulin was 2.6, my A1C was
Wow.
5.3, my blood sugar was 81. Thyroid's healthy. My doc, who's been looking at my blood work for 6 years, says my liver has never looked quieter. So my liver enzymes are down. For all those who were worried about me eating all this fructose and getting liver disease, nope, don't worry. Worry no more. My liver looks the best it's looked in 6 years, according to my doctor. So
Perfect
it
hairline.
doesn't
You're
seem,
not losing your hair.
no, no,
Have you
no.
noticed also?
It's
I've
pretty
started
thick.
noticing, yeah, there you go. Keto and carnivore, like big accounts. I'm like, oh my gosh, that person's dealing so much with hair loss. And I'm wondering, is it because they've been so keto or carnivore for such an extended period of time that that's affecting the hair?
Yeah, it's not so much a receding when you see it. It's not a receding hairline that people. That could be male pattern baldness stuff like that. We're not talking about a receding hairline, but when they have hair, but it starts thinning and you can see through it.
Right?
That's the thyroid thing, and that's what
Uh,
women. I had one lady I've been talking to. She's not even. I don't know. She's 40. She might be close, but she was losing her hair. She wasn't losing weight anymore. She didn't had no energy, and she was losing her hair. And you add the carbs in, the hair starts going back.
yeah.
She has her energy back. Her weight loss begins. It had been stuck for 6 months, and all of a sudden, the week we increase the carbs, she drops 2 pounds, and you kind of go, "It's metabolic stress.
Exactly.
It's created metabolic stress with a diet that is too restrictive."
Have you noticed that more women are being injured by this advice? I'm noticing women are
Oh yeah,
struggling even more on strict
100%.
carnivore,
Yeah, one hundred
right?
percent. They're more sensitive to cortisol, more
Yeah.
sensitive to
Tired.
all that the metabolic stress, as we know that with women anyway. Especially
Yeah.
if you're still cycling, the metabolic stress is much more of an impact on that cycle, and it's going to impact your sex hormones. But with men, if your thyroid's low, you're also not going to produce as much testosterone,
Right.
right? And cortisol can elevate aromatase, which then turns the testosterone into estrogen. So it's there's a downstream impact
Yeah.
where, like, yeah, maybe that cleaned up your diet because it got all the ultra processed food out of your diet, which was doing its own set of harm in its own way through that pathway. But long term, you've created a new set of stressors impacting your hormones in a different pathway. And so just because you cleared it up with one thing, because you got rid of junk, doesn't mean it's not going to have its own. The
Yeah.
adaptation to the diet is where the downfall is. It's actually the adaptation is a hormonal shifting, which for many people is not a good adaptation. It's one of stress, and those hormones start adjusting to adapt to the diet, but the adjustment is what's causing the problems. And so that's what I'm saying. People say, "Oh, you didn't adapt to it." I'm like, "Yeah, my body said don't do this. I don't want to adapt to it. I don't because I've adapted to being underfed and overfasted and overtrained before, and it wasn't good. So when I started carnivore for about 2 weeks, I couldn't get enough food, but yet I didn't want to eat. Like I was
Yeah.
way under my normal calories,
Mm-hmm.
did not want to eat. I felt dehydrated, sluggish,
Yeah.
and I just didn't want to. I mean, I just like, ugh, I just
Yeah.
stopped wanting food. And that told me, like, I don't want to do this. And if it takes more than 2 weeks for me to feel good, I mean, you can detox from alcohol faster than that. Why would I persist through a diet that doesn't make me feel good? And I was already healthy. I'm healthy. My numbers look great, except for a little bit of elevated blood sugar from all the fasting and the low carb. But I'm already burning fat because I'm doing fasting and low carb and fasted workouts. Obviously, I can burn fat.
Yeah.
So, what's the big adjustment I'm making to carnivore? I'm eating more fat, more protein, as much as I can get down my throat, and I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I think I should listen to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I,
You know what I
I, I
mean? Like,
mean, likewise, and
yeah,
for me, years, and I have a lot of clients where, and I believe them, non-interrupted strict carnivore and I see their labs and they're about to have a stroke, every marker indicative of having a stroke is elevated. LDL, even CRP,
Mhm.
HSCRP is high. I mean, every single marker you want to look at, it's insane.
My cholesterol. So it used to be when I was the low carb, stressed out, fasting, all that. It
Mm,
would be I have an ApoB up of like over 150. My LDL would be close to 200. My total was like over 250.
yeah,
And then when I cut the carb, when I added carbs, I
yeah,
didn't even cut the fat back at this point. I was just like zone diet. So I just increased carbs. The fat was still 100 grams, 80, 90, 100 grams, protein at 200. And I added carbs in about 250, 300, maybe a little over 300. So it's kind of zone diet.
yeah.
And my cholesterol dropped about 25%, 25% total
Wow.
cholesterol and LDL immediately. And my blood sugar came down from the 90s to like 79. My first fasting glucose after changing that went from historically for years in the 90s, which I didn't like. I know a lot of people justify, well, that's fine. I'm like, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
81 or not 79, my fasting insulin was always low, never blipped with a higher carb. And then and my, you know, this last shift I made where I kind of playing with it on fat loss, because I was walking around at 13% body fat at that point
Mm-hmm.
after adding the carbs, but not pulling anything back. And that's not unhealthy,
Yeah.
but I knew I didn't need to carry around 13% body fat. For me, I kind of like being closer to 10. That's just my personal preference. It's like my own vanity. You can call it whatever you want. I like being closer to 10. And so I made my shift, increased carbs, pulled fat back even significantly, and looked at my blood work. And that's when I got the A1C 5.3, quiet liver numbers. But my cholesterol, my ApoB, my doc made a point of, I didn't even make a point of it. He made a point of like from the last time when I was still zone diet to high carb, low fat, my ApoB dropped another 30%. And he said, I've
Wow.
never seen anyone do that without medication. And
So interesting.
so my ApoB is down in like in the 90s now. I've never seen my ApoB in the 90s because I've been doing blood work more than 6 or 7 years. And
Wow.
so ApoB in the 90s from like before it was probably 120 or something like that. So it dropped like 30% in from pulling the fat back, increasing the carbs, and all my metabolic stuff was like I mentioned before, the 5.3, the 2.4, the low fasting glucose, low
Yeah,
quiet.
yeah. It's
So
undeniable. Now we have people on years of doing
yeah,
carnivore since carnivore kind of blew up, I think around 2017, around that time. We
yeah.
have the data. The data, the jury's in.
Not even 10 years ago,
Yeah,
right? I know other people have been on it longer than that, like
yeah.
Lisa and a few others. But she's talking about 10 years in, she was having problems. She was
Right.
having negative symptoms 10 years into it, right? Lisa
Isn't
was.
that
And
wild
she's
how why would you
straight.
push through, right? Just you
I
know?
pushed through overtraining, under eating for years with the
Yeah.
intermittent fasting and the low carb. I did those two together with the fast workers for like 10 years before I finally said, you idiot. You're creating more metabolic stress than you're benefiting from. And you can see it in your blood work. You can feel it when you
Yeah.
just move or try to sleep. Get a clue. And I'm like, oh,
And you're a
okay.
coach. So, likewise,
Admittedly, I
you
was
know,
pushing myself harder than I would ever push a client for
because you know
sure.
what it is? Me too. Like, for 10 years keto and carnivore, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was like the dumbest thing. Now I realize it. Maybe it was good in the beginning when you feel like the lifting of the brain fog and all that kind of stuff and the
The stress
stable blood
hormones feel
sugars.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. But then you get capped, right? It's like there's a
Yes.
much, much, much better way to experience life, to win at life, just to be happy. Don't you want to be happy?
To be energized,
Energized, yes.
energized through real energy that comes through your food and not that you have to generate through stress hormones because you're underfed.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's a difference between the fat and the carbs that you eat, and then the carbs and fat you have to release through cortisol and glucagon, because you're elevating stress hormones. Two, when you start converting protein to glucose, you lose some ATP in that process. You
Hmm.
lose like maybe a third of the potential ATP that you would get from glucose oxidation when you
Mm,
convert protein or glycerol, whatever it is, into glucose. That process, you lose potential ATP energy, cellular energy.
yep. It's
It's
just more
expensive.
steps, right? You have to remove the nitrogen from the amino acids and then it has to enter the Krebs cycle. It's just more steps before that can oxidize or be turned into energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the whole conversion of gluconeogenesis itself before it even gets to the mitochondria
Yeah.
is expensive.
That's probably why we chose that trade-off. Why it was like, yes, we may have paid a little bit of a price in terms of bone strength and things like that, but it was still a huge win for human beings and allowed us to establish civilization and allowed
Yeah.
us to
And
progress
live
and
through
we're
the
bring
winter more often. More people to live through a scarce time period like winter or like a drought where
yeah,
they don't have rain. So they could adapt. They could go either way. They could
yeah,
store tubers. They could
yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's like it was an adaptation to allow people to live longer. I mean, even if you want to believe that carbs lead to metabolic disease, which I do not, that whole food carbs do not.
That's
But if you want to say it is, even still, you're picking a long death or a short death. As far as they're concerned, they chose the long death over the short death of
mm,
starving through the winter, or their children starving through the winter, or their older people starving through the, you know what I mean? It's like
right.
starvation or let's grow some food.
Right. Yeah, but clearly we know that, definitely carbohydrates are not it's not
No,
the carb, it's not the
no,
sweet
no, no, no. I'm
potato,
saying
it's
even
not
a
the
hypothetical, we suspend
yeah,
our experience
yeah,
and what we can see happening, and we just temporarily imagine that these potatoes and rice and fruit are causing metabolic disease. But that's a hypothetical that really
hmm
cannot be
hmm
supported
hmm
in with science and history together. So I agree with you 100%. I don't understand the cognitive dissonance that keeps them from seeing this. But at
That
the same
is
time,
the
I'm
question.
sympathetic. I'm
Yes.
sympathetic because for a long time I kept pushing through and I really patted myself on the back for enduring so much hormetic stress with the fasting and the low carb and thinking I was doing something good
Yeah.
until I hit that wall,
Yep. Yep.
you know.
That's what I was telling you about the term that I coined, peanut. What did I call it? Okay, I need to film that YouTube video so that I would remember the term because that needs to go into the DSM-5. Penile incompetence syndrome,
Oh
meaning
wow. Yeah.
there you go. We're gonna have it in the DSM-5. I promise you. Maybe in 10 years. What is it? It's basically if you are born a boy, you tend to go through life without being constantly exposed to misogynistic microaggressions that just slowly but surely chip away at your confidence, right? Unfortunately, still happens to our daughters. Happens. Do you have daughters?
Two daughters, two sons.
Oh, okay. You're gonna love this one. So the daughters are going to be exposed to that. So by the
Mhm.
time they both enter the workforce, right? The men's egos are an all-time high, super confident, but sometimes or a lot of times their competence might not actually match their level of confidence. Whereas for women, their confidence has been destroyed and destroyed and destroyed and
Yeah.
destroyed. They enter the workforce, right? Now, not only do they have to be 100 times more competent, but now they have to also work on undoing all the damage that was done to them by society. I mean, every single messaging that you get, you know? And
Yeah.
so,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
No. I
So,
never fit in too much with the real popular guys, with the football players and those guys. I was maybe that's what it was. Maybe my ego was eroded by not being the popular kid in school. And
why do
maybe
you
that's
think
what
that
it's
is?
hmm?
Why do you think that was?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I don't I had I laughed. I was a good runner because I had a big mouth but a small body. And I love to antagonize people. I just was like my entertainment. So I would actually yell or say things or antagonize like guys who are older than me or bigger than me, and then have fun outrunning them. Um, so I'm naturally can be a little antagonistic. I've tried to pull back in my adulthout, but at the
Interesting.
same time, I just I didn't really feel like trying to fit in with those guys. I didn't like them. I just
Gotcha.
didn't, I wasn't I wasn't the overly bravo macho guy. That kind of stuff kind of repulsed me because it's just like that, it just seemed fake. And so it
Uh-huh.
certainly didn't resonate with how I felt about myself. And so I didn't want to like put myself in that environment. So I just didn't
Right.
mesh well with the big macho guys at all. I really had a lot of female friends that I could just kind of like talk to.
Mm. So maybe you had also a lot of times, you might have less misogynistic programming, so so women felt more comfortable around you. They liked you better, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, most of my clients over the last 28 years have been vast majority have been women. It's only
Interesting.
recently that in the last several years where my client base has gone to more like 40 to 60-year-old kind of executive or
Mm,
business owners, and I have a little bit more men, but that's in the last 5 or 6 years. The majority of the first, to 20 years or so were like overwhelmingly like 70% women.
nice. Okay.
And so just being able to connect, you know,
Yeah, it's that and that's that's
empathy,
unfortunate.
empathy.
Exactly. And it's that gap, right? It's that gap between the confidence and the competence. And unfortunately, a lot of even like when I started first getting into the keto and then the carnivore, you notice that you get influenced by people who are very confident, and then you realize, oh, their competence does not match. This is like what we were just talking about, this syndrome. They've got the syndrome. Not only them, we all have it because even women carry this
Sure.
bias. And so anybody who's watching, I don't care what gender you are, we've all been exposed to this type of bias. And so now the next time you see somebody overly confident, especially if they're male and white, then they're probably affected by the syndrome to an even greater degree. And so maybe before you take drastic measures to your health, quiz them a little bit more than you would a female in that position.
Yeah. Most people don't know enough about what we're talking about to really quiz
Yeah.
one of these people because they have been educated and they've learned how to read some level of paper and statistics, some of them, and they can learn how to manipulate data verbally
Mm-hmm.
to make it sound really good, make themselves smart, and talk over someone's head so they really can't have a legitimate question or rebuttal or what about this because they're quoting something out of a study that was done in a lab or some sort of ward, and they found X, Y, and Z. And so, what are you going to say about that? And it's like not realizing that they could probably go find just as much data to counter that data that already exists out there, and they don't, and then we're not using real terms. So it's like, can we just bring the execute of our diet? Never used to be complex. We just ate food, and we energized from it. And coaches coaching athletes didn't have all that statistical data. They were just looking at, hey, this works. Like, oh, we feed them this, they run faster or they get stronger. And if I give them this much, they get leaner. I give this much, they gain weight. It was really simple. And we've overcomplicated this and made people scared of real food. And we're creating, in my opinion, with all this fear mongering, we're creating eating disorders or at least affirming them and enabling the eating disorders to continue
Definitely
because
creating
we're
them
blaming the
and
food
maximizing
instead
them.
of
Yeah.
addressing the person. Address the person. And maybe that eating disorder is something in their gut, and maybe it's some trauma in their head, but it's not the food. Your body can't handle the food. That's your body. It's not the food. Stop blaming the food. Stop demonizing the food and calling people who can use the food effectively addicts. I
Right, right.
mean,
What is addiction? Addiction is a low baseline dopamine. Because I was looking at all of the fiasco that's happening, and zucchini is triggering a full-blown addiction. If we're in that stage, where is that baseline dopamine? Where is that baseline serotonin? What is addiction? I spent 7 years, that was the topic of my dissertation. I got my PhD basically studying addiction,
mm,
specifically food addiction. Okay? Sorry. I'm not
well, good.
invalidating
I want to hear
anybody.
it because that's not something I've studied a lot because it just, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not my area.
Yeah, so addiction is very simple. It's just a low baseline dopamine. What is dragging your baseline dopamine lower, right? Because if zucchini is triggering a binge, which I agree, it can happen, right? If you have a little bit of sugar, it can happen. Yes, I know. Anything could trigger. And if you watch an ad, it can trigger a binge, right? So it's not the triggers because the triggers will always be there and they will become more numerous, right? It's about raising your baseline dopamine, your resilience, your strength,
Hmm.
reclaiming your power, building that brain back up again. So those neurotransmitters are high enough at a high enough level where you're like Teflon, nothing sticks, right? I could
Yeah.
literally, right now, I could literally buy a red velvet cake. I can't eat a lot anymore because I dropped my body weight set point so much that my appetite has drastically
Yeah.
reduced, you know? Yeah, that's another thing. So I can eat it and not ever think about it for years. I could not care less. Why? Because my baseline dopamine is so high now that even
Yeah.
if I consume drug foods, even if they raise that dopamine, they can't raise it much. It doesn't have much ceiling to go, right? Whereas when my baseline dopamine was low, the spike was a lot higher and a lot faster. And so it's the relative increase in dopamine
That
that
makes sense.
wires in the memory of the
Yeah.
addiction and it makes you
And
want it more and more. So yeah.
so if you eat the zucchini and your relative dopamine shoots up, my recommendation being, the kind of way I think, go buy a 5 pounds of zucchini, cook it up, and eat it until you can't eat another bite.
Right.
And then your body's going to go, not that big deal because you're not going to hurt yourself eating zucchini. Now, if it
No.
makes you dive into the ice cream,
That's the thing. It's gonna make them because it's when
right?
you're thinking black and white. I trust me, I've been through all these
Sure.
experiences. I've coached so many people with similar experiences. So I know exactly what goes on. It's the idea like, oh shit, I'm not strict carnivore anymore. I'm so might as well take advantage. You're just waiting to fall, like to go off track.
Sure.
It's normal to have, it's not, you don't have a disease, you don't have, it's a normal reaction that if you are so strict in one area and you feel like you let yourself down because you had something that's non-carnivore,
Mhm.
then yeah, that could trigger it. But like, there's so many triggers. Are you gonna live your life in a bubble,
Oh,
shielded
no.
from every trigger all
How many
around
things
you?
set off dopamine? How many
Yeah,
things? You know what? The
our
good things
phone.
set off dopamine. Good things. Winning
Exactly.
a race sets off dopamine.
Yep.
Working out sets off dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, any kind of reward
Mm-hmm.
is going to set off sex, sets off dopamine.
Exactly. It's the
I
ways
mean,
our brains are telling us do more of that. Now, we know better than to do lines of Coke, right?
cocaine.
Or take
Hopefully.
Adderall forever and just because we know it's actually gonna destroy our dopamine tone over time. But generally speaking, that state of mind is not something that we should be afraid of. We want to yearn for higher and higher levels of dopamine. Dopamine and dopamine tone sets the tone for everything in your life. It dictates your confidence level. It dictates how much money you make. It dictates the respect people give you. It dictates fitness. It dictates how long you're going to live, every single area. And it's the
Relationships.
only thing you can't buy. You actually have to earn it.
You have to, when you have to earn it. And that's the thing. But if you're in a healthy state, something as low glycemic as a squash should not set it
No.
off. You've set yourself up because you have I think at some level, a biological need for that glucose as
Mm-hmm.
well, that your body's saying, oh, we want to stop having to produce that, eat more. And I'm sure it's a combination of dopamine and your liver saying, feed me because I'm working way too hard to make all this glucose for you. And
Yeah.
I think there's a biological need there where it's like, shut down the stress hormones. As soon as you eat the carbs, the insulin goes up and the cortisol comes down. That's
Yes.
just how our
Yes.
bodies work.
Yes.
Shut down the cortisol, eat some. That's why when you're stressed out, we want to reach for the carbs, elevates blood sugar, insulin, which is your friend, not your enemy, and it takes the cortisol down. You think insulin's your enemy? Go talk to a type 1 diabetic. Ask them if insulin is their enemy. They would
Mm,
kill for some insulin to be
that's a good
coming out
point.
of their pancreas right now.
Yes.
They would
Yep.
love to
Yep.
have to be able to eat a carbohydrate and have their blood sugar go up and then insulin come and shove it back into their tissues.
Yes.
That would save their lives.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
you are calling that addiction, and you're calling that a risk for glycation, which is not accurate either.
Uh-uh.
That is normal metabolism. Talk
Jay
about
Feldman, I want to try and get him on the podcast. He's got really good material. I think his name is Jay Feldman. I
Jay
have to.
Feldman. I just interviewed him like last week.
Oh, right. He's got a great content.
Yeah.
And he's a very, like, because I like the scientific aspect of it, right? On glycation
Oh,
and
yeah. No, he's
which,
brilliant.
yeah. So we
He
should.
studied this. He was keto. I mean, he did keto for
Yeah.
many years in
Yeah.
school and then realized this isn't working for me. And he started taking same process we did. He just did it younger, less than
Yeah.
younger than me. I don't know if he's younger than you, but definitely he's a lot younger than me.
I don't think there's anybody younger than me.
Of course not.
I'm
There
forever
couldn't be.
21. But it's okay.
I'll stick to that story. That's good.
Also, for dopamine to be created in your brain, it needs an insulin spike, right? You
Oh,
for
good point.
tyrosine, yeah. So for tyrosine, which is the amino acid that converts into dopamine, in
Mhm.
order to cross into your brain via the blood-brain barrier, it requires an insulin spike. When you consume carbs and that leads to an insulin spike, you maximize how much of those amino acids can cross over. Not only that, but the enzymes that convert the precursor into actual dopamine inside your brain require an insulin spike to activate them. And so this does not mean that if you cut the carbs, you're not creating any dopamine at all. But whoa, the difference between where you're at with keto carnivore versus where you can be with some real whole food carbs in terms of dopamine production. Oh, by the way, also serotonin production, acetylcholine, all the brain chemicals. You need the carbs and the insulin spike that comes from that to maximize and optimize brain function.
Now, you're not going to get acetyl-CoA from fat oxidation because your brain doesn't oxidize fat. So you got to get it from the glucose, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
got to get that coming from the glucose and insulin. And I mean, that's yeah. There's roles for this. There's always room. There's always excess. There's always people who create something like a donut, who that's going to hijack
True.
your dopamine system, and it's full of a nasty fat that we should not be consuming, and it's full of a bunch of over processed grains and probably some glyphosate and some other chemicals in there that you don't need, but doesn't make don't stop calling donuts carbs. They got almost as much fat in them as carb. You call them a
Yeah.
fat and just
Even
as
more
accurate.
fat, actually.
Yeah, more
More
fat,
calories
many
than
times
what,
more fat
yeah.
than carbs. And so it depends on what you're looking at, which food you're looking at. Potato chips, same thing. They have almost about as much fat, depending on the chip, as carb.
Yeah.
Stop calling those carbs. A potato and a potato chip are not the same thing. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just Fruit Loops and blueberries, not the same thing, despite what some people have said on social
Really?
media. They're not anywhere in the same ballpark.
Who said that? Okay, you have to
There's
tell me
actually,
later.
oh, it's documented, it's published, and you can probably see it on Apple because I believe it was mentioned in a certain documentary by a certain person interviewed in the documentary.
What's the name of the documentary?
I'm not going to say it here.
But we're not naming names. We're just calling,
No, that's the name of a documentary, and I was participated in it, and I have friends who helped
Oh,
make it.
okay, I know.
So you can do a little research and figure it out really quick.
Okay, okay, okay.
But it was yeah, blueberries to Fruit Loops, and I know, and I want to say something real quick on a personal level. Many of the people in that documentary who are from this keto carnivore world, I have friendly relationships with. I have friends with. I can say I've talked to them. I've stood next, talked, done projects with them, had non-diet related conversations with them, friendly personal conversations. I just fundamentally disagree with their approach to diet, and I will, and I have no reason to agree with them. I've had every bit of my experience and study to say I'm very confident at this point in what I know because I've been through the same line of thinking they're in, and I've come on the other side, and I will not go backwards. And so it's I'm not speaking out of like, oh, I just tried something for 3 months and this is what I'm going to say. I,
Yeah.
I disagree with them, but I have friendships maybe still but I have had friendships with them. And so this is not a personal attack on anybody,
Yeah.
but on the concepts that I think are false and misleading people. I have no problem attacking those.
I do believe, I don't know if that's who you're referring to, but
I don't want to go down that road because I do not have any desire to name names on social media about who said what.
yeah.
But that kind of thinking, I think, is misleading.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm far more
saying it's being
combative.
done.
I like how calm you are. I'm like, somebody comes at me, man,
I'm
it's
not
like
that. I'm not
scorched
that. I'm
earth
not that
calm.
calm. My
How
wife's been
can you
telling me
be
to
so
calm down, actually.
calm?
But
What?
my wife's been telling me to calm down a bit, actually. So I've got a tether on me saying,
Man.
Zane,
And
be professional.
I'd be like, do it. Go out. Like if somebody is gonna,
No,
name
but most of
call
these people
me.
have not. Only one has actually started kind of showing up on my feed a lot. Um, but I'm not calling him names. I'm just completely disagreeing
Yeah.
with him, and
Yeah.
I am questioning their tactics because I believe food addiction is being enabled and eating disorders are being affirmed or even created.
Oh, they're getting worse. And either created or getting far, far worse. Trust
Right.
me, I've seen it over and over again.
But I don't think the people I'm disagreeing with, I don't think they're intentionally trying to mislead people because I know their hearts.
Yeah.
And I think I do. My first inclination is they are not manipulating, they are not intentional, they actually believe what they're saying
Yeah.
and they believe they're really helping people. I
Yeah.
just disagree with their methods. I'm not questioning their intentions. That's why I don't want to go after them personally. If I thought somebody was actually like intentionally like a charlatan,
Yeah.
intentionally misleading people for his own gain or
Right.
her own gain, and they knew he was manipulating them, that's a completely different ballpark. That is not what I'm saying. I
Yep.
do
Yep.
not, I do not, I'm not attributing that to any of the people that I'm disagreeing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
just want to, it's because I want to maintain friendships and I have no reason to point the finger like that, but I
Mm.
have every reason to disagree with them.
Nice.
That
I
okay?
am in awe of your calmness, man.
Well, you're a
I'm like,
fiery Lebanese living in Miami. I would
that's the
expect
thing.
you to be like,
Right. How am I
you
gonna
know,
turn out? And then have you seen my husband? He's like on a whole other stratosphere. He's, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's
is he a
wild
feisty
over
one
here.
too? Is he an aggressive kind of like,
Oh my gosh. Like
okay, okay.
me times 1,000.
Oh, wow. Oh, you
If you
two are
can
quite the
imagine.
pair.
It's crazy. I
Oh,
know.
yeah. Quite the
I
pair. What?
I like spice. I like, I
Sure.
think growing up in Lebanon, people everything is more passionate. We're intense. We're more passionate about everything.
Confrontational. Yeah, absolutely. You're
I don't
more
know if
confrontational.
it's confrontational. I think it's more passion and intensity.
Right. But if someone comes like,
Oh, well, you come at me, you're done. Yeah.
you're definitely a
Like,
counter
and
puncher.
that what? What?
Definitely a counter puncher. But you're a
Yeah,
counter puncher.
totally.
It's
I
like
think
you
that's
punch,
just
you swing at me, I'm going to hit you.
yeah. I never go after people like how some people would create whole channels and brands around tearing people down and all they do is criticize.
I've
Like,
seen that. I've
yeah,
seen that recently,
yeah.
actually. I
That's
think
like
I've
the
been the
lowest
focus
level
of it.
of yeah. Oh, I know. They're going after it. You cannot get lower in life than that is what you're bringing. That's the value
No,
you're
those are
bringing to
bottom
humanity.
feeders.
Those are the
Those are
bottomest of the bottom. That's like
the
Megan
bottom
Kelly
feeders.
talking shit about J-Lo. It's like
Oh my
if you
God.
looked half as good, you wouldn't have
I
time
can't
to
imagine anyone talking. I mean, I'm just like, what are you complaining about? I mean, she's 50 something years old and it's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
not just how she looks, how she moves. Like
Her
to move
energy. Yes.
her energy and how to be able to move that way without breaking something
Yep.
on stage.
And by the way, she loves her carbs, her healthy
Of
carbs.
course she does. You can see it in her shape that she's
Right.
a well-figured woman.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, and she's got strength and energy and she's athletic.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah. So that's where we have to look at examples of like who, what success leaves clues, you know?
Oh my
But,
gosh.
you know, but I really glad you brought up the dopamine thing and explained that the way you did, because that's a deeper understanding than I'd had previously. So it's very interesting. I'd love to dig more into that, but
Oh, yeah,
it's
totally.
that explains a lot.
And
actually.
and we're talking about somebody who just introduced carbs and getting those insulin spikes. So now they get more of those precursors, create more dopamine, more serotonin in their brain. Not to mention that when you have more carbs and if you actually use them to fuel your body and become fitter, imagine how much higher your baseline dopamine, not just baseline dopamine, dopamine tone. It's like the amount of dopamine you can create, the amount of dopamine you can store in the
Right.
vesicles inside your brain cells, the amount that you can pump into the synapse, and then the amount of D2 receptors. It's like everything gets upregulated. So now imagine how much higher you can go with carbs that are fueling more and more intense workouts. You're going to look insane. You're going to have a brain that's insane. Your confidence, your income, I mean, it's the
Intensity.
everything, the
Yeah. It's
foundation
like
for everything.
dopamine performance is what you're describing. Your dopamine, you said tone, and I don't know if everybody was going to grasp that meaning, but it's like your dopamine performance. It's not just a spike. It's like how you handle the dopamine, where it goes, how well it's absorbed because you have the sensitivity being brought back, right? So the
Exactly.
sensitivity of the receptors being awakened and going, oh, we can handle more dopamine.
Yes.
And then you get the downstream benefits from the whole system being elevated in performance. Is that's what I'm hearing you say?
Perfection. Yeah, because when I used to
Okay.
say baseline dopamine all the time, and it only refers to the number of D2 receptors. But
Mm.
it's so much more than that. There are so many chemical pathways that are happening. It's not just the number of D2 receptors or dopamine receptors that you have that we want to increase the dopamine receptors. It's also how much dopamine you have already stored in your vesicles, how efficiently you can pump them from brain cell to brain cell. It's all that stuff. So, dopamine tone, I find to be a much more powerful way to explain the sheer power of when we increase all of these processes, not just the dopamine receptors. It's like the next level stuff.
I
You were
think
gonna say,
that's fantastic. It takes it beyond just the single neurotransmitter. It's the whole system that exists around the neurotransmitter and how it executes it with your life. I mean, just all the things that you take on. It's like you said,
yeah,
career, relationships, performance, how you feel, how you think about yourself. You know what I mean? That's your self-esteem.
yes, yes, and
Oh, I can do that. You see
yes,
something hard, instead of shrinking from it, you go, oh no, I can do that.
exactly.
I can do that. Oh, I see what this guy did. I can do that too. That's dopamine, is it not?
Yes, it's
And
dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin. It's
norepinephrine.
yes,
And when you win,
even more dopamine.
even more
Give
dopamine
me all the dopamine.
with the right and through the correct pathways, through the correct ways, not more dopamine through like you're cheating it with a video game that's constantly hitting it every 30 seconds. Very different thing than
Yeah,
earning that dopamine with a good diet, with exercise, with basically dealing with your what's going on up here, right?
yeah.
Good sleep, all those things that help you when you it's time, you know, achieving things, good relationships, great sex. All those things are
That's a
earned,
big one, by the way. That means
but it's earned. That's
it
what I mean.
is
It's
earned.
earned.
It is earned. And when you increase your baseline dopamine, the quality of the orgasms for ladies and men, actually, there's a difference between a regular orgasm and a far more pleasurable orgasm. And some of you, I'm sure, have experienced this. Like, like I know it happened, but it feels so much better. That's
Mm.
also higher baseline dopamine. So, welcome,
Let's hear it
everybody.
for the high carb orgasms.
High carb orgasms are so much better. Oh, I love it. Let me see. Anything else that you think we should touch upon?
I think, wow, I've learned something. So I feel really good about this. This is amazing. It's been a great conversation just with the dopamine. There's so much more depth. And that's a big part of, I think, the eating disorder subject when it comes up. It's not a component I'm an expert in, admittedly, but at the same time, I know the food didn't cause the problem. And I hope that doesn't want to not, I don't say that to sound unsympathetic because I'm not, but let's put if we don't focus on the cause, a proper cause, if we're blaming something that's really not causing it, then we're not going to be able to fix it. And now we're displacing the source of the problem, and then you're never going to deal with it. It's just going to get worse or fester and continue. And until you turn it on to whatever actually the cause is, which resides in the person, there's not going to be a resolution to the eating disorder.
Yeah.
If you want to continue it, then keep living restriction. Restriction doesn't change bad habits. Restriction doesn't change addiction.
Yeah.
You got to retrain that. You know,
Yeah.
we're talking about a behavioral addiction, not a truly addictive thing like a cigarette or alcohol or heroin,
Right.
which comes with, you know,
That, and also when you have a low baseline dopamine, you can, yeah, exactly. Like behavioral addictions, like everything can become a problem, right? It's the root cause
exactly.
that's the issue. It's the low baseline dopamine that's the issue. So just
Hmm.
fix it so that you don't, so that your world doesn't have to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, whereas the demands placed on us keep getting more and more intense, more EMFs, more environmental toxins,
Right.
faster pace of life. How are you going to outpace all of those stressors if your baseline
Right.
dopamine is down? You need to raise it because dopamine is the anti-stress molecule. High dopamine, low cortisol. They never happen. You never have both of
Mm.
them high. It's
Better
always,
sleep too, I would imagine. Sleep a big one.
oh my gosh,
So
yes.
what? So dietarily, if I can ask you a question,
Mm-hmm.
dietarily, how for just from I know there's a lot of other ways to raise your dopamine, but from a diet perspective,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say would be a good pathway to increase dopamine from someone who's blunted it through a very restrictive diet?
Yeah, well, obviously, you would have to go back and reintroduce carbs so you can actually get the precursors into your brain. So you also have more easily obtainable energy in the form of glucose as opposed to having to rely on gluconeogenesis and being in a stress state. All those things are going to go up, right? And so, really, just eat whole foods, not drug foods, whole foods, but truly, it's the workouts that are going to give you insane results that is just so shocking how much powerful you feel and how much you can literally feel that higher baseline dopamine
Mhm.
if in case you haven't felt it yet. Like,
Right. No, I've got
right.
it.
Yeah, it's like
I've
I
got it. It's getting
noted.
stimulated a lot lately, actually. Um, can I ask you another biochemistry question?
Sure.
Since you, I mean, obviously, your audience knows this. You have a PhD in nutrition.
Yeah.
You've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah.
So the process in which we make glucose
Yeah.
through gluconeogenesis,
Yeah.
would you not call that a stress response?
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Okay. So it involves stress hormones like cortisol and glucagon, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so over time, what would be the primary, what do you think the primary, I mean, people argue about this, which substrates are responsible for it. I hear a lot of
Hmm.
arguments that it's becomes primarily the glycerol from all the fat being broken down. And yet others will say, oh, it's if you look at a lot of textbook, a lot of studies will say, oh, it's primarily amino acids coming from lean mass, and glycerol contributes maybe from a single digit percentage to maybe to 12% or so. And
Hmm.
so in your experience or study, do you have an opinion or does it even matter? I mean, for me, it's not so much that the protein is being broken down, the muscle being broken down. That's not really the big problem. The big problem is the stress hormone elevation, which continues. That's where I think the big problem is.
Exactly.
Where it comes from is kind of
Irrelevant. You
irrelevant.
hit it right on. Yeah, no, of course. Of course. If cortisol is elevated, it's going to trigger glucagon to go up, and that you're just, glucagon is a stress molecule. That's what it is, right? And so you
It's a
don't want it.
catecholamine. It's a catabolic hormone, however you want to name it. I hear people say, I
Ex-
hate it when they call it
yes,
stress hormones. It tells me not to
yes.
listen. Like,
I'm doing an interview, honey. I'm recording.
Sorry.
there's the
Uh-oh.
beast
What's
himself.
that?
Crushing some coffee.
Ooh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
There's the beast.
All right, I think we're gonna
Ripped
keep
in
it in.
tan right there. Ripped in
I,
tan. And there you go. Got a coffee delivered to your door.
I
You
love
got a good delivery
that.
boy there.
He takes care
Um,
of me.
good. That's
Sorry.
amazing. That's
Right?
called the wisdom of age. That's what
That's
that is.
true. That's true. My baby.
Knows how to take care of you.
He does.
Um,
Yes.
so I mean, again, the substrates don't matter, but there's a lot of talk from the other side that over time, those stress hormones are no longer elevated from either the fat burning side, the elevated fat oxidation, or the glucose creation, the gluconeogenesis. That, oh, those aren't stress hormones are not elevated. That's just coming right off of the glycerol. So there's no more stress hormone. I'm like,
That, I mean, I'm seeing the labs of my clients. So until I see labs and studies on that,
yeah,
that's just an opinion, right? And
yeah,
so I've just coached way too many carnivores for way too long, and now we're
Yeah.
seeing all of these results. And in the beginning, I'm like, maybe we should do this, maybe add this supplement, da, 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 like really trying hard to make it work. But at the end of the day, there is no denying that it is the carbs.
Right. So you're saying the glucagon and cortisol stay elevated ongoing as long as gluconeogenesis is creating your glucose, and as long as cortisol is releasing the fat, the stress from the lack of carbohydrates, it elevates the stress. So all the stress hormones stay elevated, or our receptors become more sensitive, one or the other. But we have,
Exactly. It's like the tone, the baseline goes up. And it just, you don't want to live in that chronically stressed state because it's going to influence every other hormone in your body. This is why the thyroid gets messed up as well.
and the testosterone
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
the
a big one.
dopamine and
I mean, everything. And I
yeah,
get it. Like, if you have type 2 diabetes, don't go out and just, like, it's a different thing. We have to do some different things in the beginning, right? But for the vast majority of the population, that's not why they really gravitated towards carnivore. Most of them, it's like we just want to feel better, and most importantly, most of them just want to lose weight,
correct.
right? And there's so much we can like, even autoimmune conditions, it's about sealing leaky gut. How do you seal leaky gut when you don't have microbiome diversity?
Mm,
Like, we're we're
right.
starving, we're being afraid of oxalates, starving oxalobacter formigens, which is such an ancestrally appropriate probiotic that is known to correlate. Like, if you have a lot of it, you're leaner, your thyroid function is better.
Mm,
And now we're destroying it, right? First of all, with antibiotics and everything, and second
yeah.
of all, we're afraid of oxalates and not eating anything with oxalates or plant foods that have oxalates. And so now it's got less food to consume, so it dies off, and it's very, very difficult to repopulate the gut with it. There's only one company in Europe that I know of that managed somehow miraculously, because it's very hard to manufacture, to be able to make that probiotic. So why
Mm.
would you want to take that risk? You
I
know?
I agree. Yeah, I did it for too long. I'm not
Yeah.
going back.
So we got interrupted a little bit because I do have an upcoming podcast. Hopefully we can do a round two. If you
Yes.
guys want us to do a round two, let us know, share it, put it in the comments. What are the specific topics you would like us to go over? Let us know so that we can cover them. And so where is it? Oh, we left off with the gluconeogenesis, right? And how it's actually a stress response. And so from there also, let's mention the saturated fat, right? That you were talking about off the air with me, and you were telling me like, yeah, even saturated fat, it's not like it's an essential nutrient, right? When people are saying, well, carbs aren't essential, well, what about eating
Right.
tons and tons of the saturated fats, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, the essential nutrients, carbs aren't essential, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
really know that essential has a specific meaning. They think it
Mm-hmm.
means you don't need it at all. There's no benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Not that essential nutrients actually have a very specific term in nutrition, which you would be probably better at explaining than I would with your PhD. But I know the concept is just a few amino, basically like 13 grams of nine specific amino acids, a certain ratio, and then a
Right.
few grams of omega-6 and a few grams of omega-3. It's about 110 calories in total as essential nutrients,
Right.
right?
Well said. I love it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if we stick to our essential nutrients, you're eating about 110 calories a day of polyunsaturated fat
Mm-hmm.
and a couple ounces of your ribeye,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Everything beyond that, not essential, but
Mm-hmm.
it might be beneficial to eat more.
That's what we're saying, right? It's like there's
Yeah.
nothing really that is essential to eat in such high amounts, right? You're getting all your essential nutrients. Now it's like, okay, so now the rest is best coming from where, right? And that's the whole debate. Should we get it from carbs, from fats?
Right.
I would say get the healthy fats and get the good carbs too. It's just don't shun the carbs. Trust me, because there's a reason why our species made that trade-off 10,000, 12,000 years ago.
Right.
It seems like our brains truly, truly need it. So
For sure. Well,
there
and
you go.
with any of it, I mean, it's just beneficial, optimal.
Yeah.
There isn't one specific perfect diet. There was not one specific perfect diet that we all ate all the time,
Yeah.
forever and ever. It's just there is a diet that is void of these toxins that we've let in through the 20th century. The big difference between the level of metabolic disease we have now and the lack of metabolic disease then
Yeah.
is the food we've created in the 20th century. Because everywhere across the world, they were eating different food
Yeah.
as available when they could gather it, depending on where they lived, without metabolic disease. None of them had metabolic disease. The only common denominator is that they didn't have ultra processed food.
Perfect. That's a great way to end it. Where can people find you and connect
Oh,
with you?
well, I'm most active, especially lately, on Instagram. It's been quite active. So if you want to see a firestorm, head over to my Instagram at Zane Griggs Fitness. My YouTube channel, I'm trying to nurture that a bit more and put a little more there with which is at Zane Griggs on YouTube. But my looking for socials, zanegriggs.com is my website. It's out there. It's got my socials and everything else going on. So if someone wants to get, like I have a little freebie I give out. It's called free40plan.com, free40plan.com. It's just basically how I would approach a client with diet, exercise, recovery, and then some recommendations for like metabolic and sex hormone markers to aim for if you're, like optimal versus normal. And it gives a little bit of example. It's like a 2 or 3 page PDF, but it's free40plan.com and it's free, like it says.
Love that. I will make sure
Okay,
I post the direct links to all of
great.
your socials in the description box below so people can click and get and reach you directly. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Zane, and I'm gonna be watching to see what happens
Oh, yeah.
and
Watch the show.
watch the show. And if you guys wanted to do a round two, let us know and we'll set it up. Thank you, Zane.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sarah. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you. A lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us till the end. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure you give this YouTube video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.